Hey there. What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? What's going on, so to speak? What's going on? How are things doing? It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. What else can I say until I see some people showing up here? Could do a little tap dance routine. I could talk to people that I'm not really sure are here yet. Hey, YouTube, fix this bit. It's like us people who come on and do live presentations. We never know when there's anybody here. It's really kind of funny and crazy. It's such a good platform, but it's also kind of crazy because we never know if there's anybody on here or not. Okay. Until people start saying things, right? So, in other words, we just kind of sit here going, hey, am I on YouTube? Are there people seeing me yet? There we go. All right. Now we're seeing some actual people. So, how's it going, everyone? I hope everybody's doing well. Please feel free to, in your little chat window, put some questions, and I'll be giving the answers. I almost said put some questions and answers, but why would you put questions and answers when you're really wanting to put the questions? Good morning to you too. So what I would like for people to do is to please do your best to not ask questions about your own particular horoscope. The reason being is giving generalizations about your horoscope based on one or two planet combinations really isn't doing you as much service as you might think that it might be doing you. So please try not to do that. But any general questions about astrology, even if they're questions that can help you to figure out your own horoscope, you can please feel free to ask there. So thanks everyone for joining us. What is the topic? The topic is whatever we make it the topic. Okay. And there's some things, or a thing or two I want to say while we're here too, but I generally wait until like there's about 15 or 20 people here before I go into that. So in the meantime, please just feel free to ask any general astrology questions you have. Let's talk about, somebody put something about a particular dosha and the best remedy to reduce adverse effects. One thing that I want to talk to people about, and I kind of just generally talk about this anyway, but I'm going to repeat it because I know that some of you don't always see every single live appearance that I do on YouTube. Here's my take on remedies. Remedies are not such that if your chart... So for instance, let me just kind of give you an idea. I've had people come to me before and say, I want you to tell me what gemstone I can wear to make me a millionaire. Okay, well, two things. First thing being is that if millionaire isn't indicated in your horoscope, no gemstone is going to make you a millionaire. Second thing is that if being a millionaire is indicated in your horoscope, then you don't need a gemstone to make that happen. Okay? So as a matter of fact, if you bought the gemstone, you'd have less money than that, right? You think about that, huh? But what remedies are really good for is they're really good for helping you, the individual, to focus on the karma that might be creating the difficulty in your horoscope and help you to reduce the karma. Sometimes that does make things a little bit better, but it doesn't make them perfectly better. So I'm never big on going, oh, do this remedy for this or this remedy for that on YouTube. Number one, because really a lot of it is very chart specific and horoscope specific. So, giving you a remedy for one thing, it's not taking the rest of your horoscope into consideration, is it? So it's not really the best thing to do. Remedies need to be on a case-by-case basis. Okay. But that's my take on remedies and how they work. Really, the best remedy you can do is to know your horoscope, know the karma that you're needing to deal with, and focus on dealing with the karma. Okay, so let's see what else we've got here. So I'm going to read some of your questions. What challenges would having a lot of planets with weak Digbala bring? That's a good question. Digbala is what is called directional strength. It's one of the measurements that goes to create Shadbala. And Digbala, I don't know if I just said this, pardon me if I did, is what's called directional strength. And interestingly enough, and so let's explain directional strength. So it means what house a planet occupies in the horoscope. Some planets tend to work better in some houses than they do in others. And so when the planet is in its most favored house, then it's going to have the strongest digbala. When it's in its weakest house, it's going to have the weakest digbala. So what does that mean for the individual? They have difficulty directing the energy of those planets. Does that mean that they're kind of cursed with not being able to deal with whatever those planets are about? So for instance, if a planet is the 7th or 10th lord, does that mean that their relationships in their career is cursed? No, it just means that you got to focus a lot harder in order to deal with it. So that's how the challenges with Digbala really tend to work. Okay, so let's see. Let's see what else we've got here. Are there specific yogas related to adoption? Well, really, quite often, the best way to determine anything in astrology is not always by yogas. Yogas are okay for pointing in a particular direction, and that's not me dissing yogas because I do use them. It's just saying that yogas have to be qualified. And I know a lot of people like the whole concept of yogas because they think it's a nice, neat way to give a quick prediction for somebody. But it's also a way to give inaccurate predictions if you don't know how to understand that if a planet isn't strong enough, it's not going to create the indications of what it's associated with, even if it's connected to a yoga, right? So, you know, a lot of things really depend on the horoscope. Some things that I have seen creating an adopted child have been people born on eclipses, because if you understand the sun to be related to the father and the moon related to the mother, it can create a scenario where the person doesn't really know their mother or know their father because they're eclipsed from that. But that doesn't always bring that, you see? So you have to really, there's a lot of different things that can create that. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Does the effect of a combust planet, will it be there for the entire life or does it improve over time? Okay, well, let's talk about that. You can't really fully say that it will improve over time, because if an individual comes upon the dasha of that combust planet later on in life, after the time when they might have a better relationship to that planet, then they're still going to encounter the difficulties of that combust planet. Got me on that one? The other side of that is that generally when you get into your 40s, that planet tends to, you don't fully overcome that combustion, right? But that planet does begin to make itself a little bit stronger. Sometimes that it does so with a bit of an imbalance. So for instance, if you've got a combust Mars, since you've been used to not really being able to connect to that Martian energy, it may erupt on a certain level. Then it will eventually kind of subside, and with any luck, you'll become aware of how to work with that. But so generally within the 40s, I wouldn't say combust planets get better, but you become a little more aware of how to work with them. Okay, that's at least what I have experienced. Okay, so before we proceed with anything else, I had a couple of things I wanted to talk with everyone about. First of all, thank you everyone for all the really wonderful birthday wishes that you sent my way on my Facebook channel. Yesterday was my birthday, in case you're wondering. And so I just wanted to say thank you. It's really wonderful to hear so many happy birthdays from so many of you and to connect to all of you. And whilst I'm going to endeavor to reply to each and every person who did send a happy birthday wish, please know it may take me a little bit of time to do that. But I just wanted to say thank you so very much for all of your birthday wishes. I want to say that first and foremost, that thank you for that. I also want to say thank you to all of you for always watching, always being here, always having a lot of questions and a lot of things to talk about, and making this whole interaction really interesting and a lot of fun. The next thing I want to talk about is the fact that this Saturday, I am going to be starting a brief webinar series. It's either going to be 2 classes or 3 classes, but it's at least 2. And it's a webinar series on financial astrology, right? What are we going to be teaching on this course? What I'm going to be teaching on a general level is how, through understanding your own horoscope, you can know when those times of financial abundance are approaching. And so you can also know when those times of financial stress are approaching. It's good to do that because when you know when the abundance is coming, then you can make the most out of that situation, right? And you can work with it and prepare on how you can work with the resources that might be coming in at that time. Okay. And if you understand when the difficult times are coming, then you know how to prepare for that. You know, if you've got a period of abundance coming before a period of difficulty, that you can put a little bit of cash back in order to deal with that, right? That bit's not rocket science, but it's good to understand the trends and to know when all of the ups and downs are, right? So what are we going to be doing on this course? We're going to learn how to work with the Hora chart, which relates to our liquid assets, amongst other things. And we're also going to learn how to work with the Chaturtamsha chart, which relates to our fixed assets, among other things. Now, both of these charts, the D2, for those of you who don't know the name of it, and the D4, both have all sorts of other indications too, but they work with that on a financial level. And we'll touch on some of those other aspects too, because they kind of tie into the financial side. But we're going to learn how to judge the strength of planets and how to know when you're in a dasha period that's going to bring more promise financially, and how to know when you're entering into a period that's likely going to bring more difficulty. Now, this particular webinar is going to be at 4:30 p.m. London time. So what time does that translate to for those people who are in the States? Okay, so if you're in the States and you're on the West Coast Pacific time, that's going to be 8:30 a.m. Mountain time, 9:30 a.m. Central time is going to be 10:30 a.m. and Eastern time is going to be 11:30 a.m. on Saturday. If you're in India, that's going to be at 9 p.m. your time. Now, this class, I said 2 to 3 classes, because if we don't complete the syllabus in 2 classes, I am going to extend for at least an extra class, no extra charge. And the fee for this particular webinar series is $108 for the webinar. Each class is 90 minutes long. Each class is also recorded to video and uploaded to the cloud so that you can download it on your end along with the PowerPoint for the course. So you have like all the notes for the course and everything like that. In addition to that, for people who want to be guinea pigs, only kidding. Not about the guinea pig bit, right? But so for people who want to be a guinea pig, you can submit your charts. And I can't look at everybody's chart on the course, but a couple of charts I might be able to use as examples. And so you get, for those people who are lucky enough for me to pick their chart, we hope, depending upon what your chart's saying. I'm not trying to scare you, really. I'm only kidding. Dependent upon what your chart is saying, you'll get a free look at your chart from a financial level on that line. Okay, so basically, somebody's asking you a question, but I answered it for them. So basically, it's a 2-class webinar series, probably 3, on Saturdays. Okay, so you can register. There's a link above in the video that will take you to the registration page for the course if you're interested. Okay, let's see what else we got here question-wise. All right. So somebody also said, could I speak about retrograde planets? Well, one of the things that I always like talking about retrograde planets, and for those of you who see me talk about this several times, well, you're going to see me talk about it again, because it really generally helps to dispel all the myths about retrograde planets. There's this misconception that retrograde planets are bad. As a matter of fact, and I know I say this every time, this whole concept of bad planet and good planet is really kind of silly, right? Because every planet is good in its way, even if it's creating challenge in your life. You might not like it, but it's creating challenge so you can grow. It's all how you approach it as to whether it's good or bad. But people often think of retrograde planets as being difficult planets, but they're not always difficult planets. As a matter of fact, having a retrograde Mercury in your chart can give you really good intuition that other people may not have, right? The retrograde Jupiter can make you somebody who's always looking for meaning, deeper meaning in things, right? And who really searches and explores the deeper meaning in those things that they encounter in life. So retrograde planets are not always difficult. I think that for some individuals, they see them as difficult because the planet isn't functioning in as much of an external manner when it's retrograde. Its processes become more internalized, which can be a very positive thing. You just have to know how to work with it. But also, the thing is retrograde planets are really the strongest planets in the horoscope because they get really strong Chesta Bala, or behavioral strength, because of being retrograde. So that makes those planets very strong, and that can only do good for the horoscope. Okay, so don't believe the misconception that retrograde planets are always bad. Okay, so another brief announcement. Sorry for all the quote unquote infomercials, so to speak, but you know, I do have a business too. I am still continuing the 10% discount on astrological services, but that's going to end tonight at 11 p.m. London time, right? So you need to look up where that is in your time zone if you want to book before then. But all uppercase letters April, April, when you go to book on my astrological services page, when you're making payment, you can please enter that discount code. I did this 10% discount because on Sunday, my fees are going up. Basically, I've tried to switch to doing everything person to person over the internet, with the exception of people who just absolutely positively can't do it that way. But because I'm approaching everything person to person now, it does require a lot of extra admin for me, because you end up with things where people, you know, may miss an appointment or something like that, and you have to reschedule, juggle your calendar. It just makes it really crazy. I think it gives a lot of extra service to people, which is why I want to keep doing it that way. But in order to accommodate that, I do have to raise my fees. But if you book now, meaning today, before the 11 p.m. deadline, then you can book person to person at 10% off the normal fee. But that's going to end at 11 p.m. tonight. So if you want to take advantage of that, you really should do so soon. Okay. Thank you for saying happy birthday, Robert. I really do appreciate it. Okay. So let's see what we've got. The best way to understand planets with lower degrees is through working with the Baladi Avastas. Okay? Now, planets at lower degrees between 0 and 6 of any sign can be somewhat compromised in terms of their strength, but it depends on if that planet is in an odd sign. So what are the odd signs? I'll go through it again. It's Aries, pardon me, Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. If it's in an odd sign at 0 to 6 degrees is going to make that planet Bala, or in an infant state. Planets in an infant state can maintain things. They can also, with other things being equal, they have to be Bala, and it's best, they can still maintain things, but it's best if they're not something called Sushupti. We're not going to go into that now, though. We'll just focus on the degree of the planet. Planets that are Bala can maintain things that are in the horoscope and keep them from falling apart if other things are indicative of that. They have a hard time doing things and creating things in the horoscope. So in other words, if you're looking at that planet predictively to see if it's going to create a relationship or create a job or anything like that, it's not going to be able to do it by itself. It's going to need stronger planets to help it out. Just like if you send a baby to, like, go build a house, it's like, it's going to be taking its rattle and trying to hammer in a nail. It's not really going to be that effective, is it? But if you've got somebody there with it to kind of hold its hand and teach it how to hammer, that's not really a good idea, right? Don't try that one at home. I think you get the idea, though, that they can do it with a little bit of extra help. Okay, that's how Bala planets work. But if you're looking at the even signs, which are Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, Scorpio, Capricorn, and Pisces, 0 to 6 degrees of those signs is Mrita, which is dead, which means that that planet doesn't have good strength to create things. And unless it's in its own house, Mula Trikona, or exalted, it also doesn't have good enough strength to create things. Okay, that's a good way to understand strength and weaknesses of planets in lower degrees. All right. So let's see what other types of questions we've got here. By the way, I'm only here for another 15, 20 minutes, people, just because I got to go do something. But I wanted to pop in for a little bit of time. No, it's not true that if a Mahadasha of a planet sitting in the 12th house of the Vimshamsha does not, it doesn't, that's untrue that it indicates not a right spiritual path. That's inaccurate. You've got to take things in context of the whole horoscope. You have to do, I would suggest doing a Jaimini technique or two to understand which planets are important in terms of the individual's liberation. You know, if a planet's strong and it's in the 12th house, it's not going to, you know, be bad like that, really, you know, so that's inaccurate, at least in my opinion. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Outer planets. Okay, this is my concept of the outer planets. Number one, you know, I've worked with outer planets before, but really you end up finding that that Ketu and Rahu tend to create a lot of things that basically Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto do. So sometimes you find it's not really necessary to go into those planets, because if you do, you're going to end up really kind of finding that, oh, well, that's just kind of confirming this, or that's confirming that, or at least that's what I've discovered. But a good way to understand the outer planets, sorry, I want to answer somebody's questions. I'm going to interrupt. I'm going to interrupt my own answer to answer somebody's question. Why do I do these live videos so early? It's because I'm in the United Kingdom and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon here, whereas in your time zone it might be a little earlier. So that's the answer to that. Okay, so sorry if it's a difficult time for you. It's hard on this end. It's just different hours for different people. Okay, so let's go back to the outer planets. A good way to work with the outer planets, I find, is to look at Uranus as being similar to the energy of Brahma, the creator. Okay, so it wants to kind of shake things up so that something new can be created, right? And you can look at Neptune as being related to Vishnu. So Neptune tends to, through its lessons, wherever it's at in the horoscope, it's there to teach us how certain things are similar, but they may not appear to be similar. And that's very similar to Vishnu, because Vishnu basically is the essence that permeates all of creation. But sometimes we only see the surface. So the lessons of Neptune will often make us see the surface or make things confusing so that we penetrate through to what's beneath that. Pluto tends to behave like Shiva. It comes into life. It either strengthens our resolve and association with certain things and gets rid of all the impediments that are keeping us from achieving something, or it eliminates those things from our life that aren't really helpful. So you can look at those planets on that level. But when you're trying to, and I could probably do a whole course on this because I can only really touch on it briefly. When you're trying to work with the outer planets, it's very important to understand the nodal axis. And here's the reason. Because with planets like everything up to Saturn, you can look up in the sky with the naked eye and you can actually see those planets. But when it comes to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they can't be seen with the naked eye. You need a telescope to see them. So basically, Rahu and Ketu are two figures that have a representation in the sky, but are not actual concrete things either. but they have a representation through eclipses. So since they're partially within the physical realm, but also partially shadowy planets, they function as a good bridge between the horoscope and the outer planets. And so basically, if you've got, say, a Pluto transit going on, it's always going to play itself out in the modality of the nodes, but that's a really long subject to go into that involves really understanding the dispositors of the nodes, where that dispositor is positioned from the node itself and also from the ascendant in terms of the things that it's going to bring to the surface. So for instance, let me give you an idea. Let's say you've got Rahu in Libra for a Leo ascendant, right? That Rahu is obviously ruled by Venus. And let's say Venus is in Scorpio. Okay. Well, then Rahu is going to have a third house agenda because it's in the third house, but it's also going to have a second house agenda because Venus is in the second from it. And it's also going to have a fourth house agenda. So then Pluto transits, Uranus transits, Neptune transits are going to bring second, third, and fourth house matters to the surface, amongst other things. But it's a topic for a whole discourse, really. And maybe I'll do a course on it in the future. Okay. I'm going to have a drink. No, not that type of drink. I think you follow what I'm saying. Okay, so just another reminder. Just to give everybody an idea, there is a new webinar series starting this Saturday on financial astrology. It's called Feast or Famine. It's thought it was a good one to do for tax season. It's there to help you to understand when those times of financial abundance are coming in association with your horoscope, and when those times that are slow financially are coming so that you can prepare for either. This course is only $108. It's going to be at least 2 classes long. Each class is going to be 90 minutes long. They're all recorded, so you get a copy of the videos plus the notes. You also get membership to my astrological forum for joining the course, and it may even go an extra class or 2, dependent upon how quickly we get through the course material. Plus, you can submit your birth information, and I may, with your permission, use your chart to help to understand the financial ups and downs for other people in the course so that they can have a general understanding. In other words, we'd use your chart as an example. That's probably the easiest way to say that. So if you want to register for that course, the link is above up in the video. You should see a little eye. That'll take you to the page where you can register. Okay, and if you're a previous student on any of my courses, you get a 10% discount. If you want to know how to take advantage of that, you can just email me. Even if you just join one of my courses like a few weeks ago, you still get that discount. That goes to every student. Okay. So let's see some other questions that are here. What is the meaning if no planets are in Kendra houses, like in a divisional chart? Well, actually, just so everybody knows, the Rashi chart, main birth chart, that's a divisional chart too, because it's basically dividing the sky into 12 equal portions. So it's a divisional chart. No planets in Kendras, that means that on many levels, the individual's life is less focused externally. It doesn't mean it's necessarily focused internally. So for instance, if planets are in the 8th or 12th, then there's going to be a greater preponderance towards things that are more moksha oriented. If the planets are in the 5th and the 9th, then things are going to be more dharma oriented. So people have this concept, and I was asked this in the last live appearance, that somehow having no planets in Kendras is bad. I think it all depends on what bad means to you. So an astrologer doesn't naturally know what bad means to you unless they've looked at your horoscope. So when people come on and ask me if planets in Kendras are bad, you're going to get a very vague answer because I don't know what bad means to you. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we've got. So for ease, somebody's asking for ease, do I prefer Dashtana lords strong in Dashtana houses and weak in the others? No, because if a Dushtana lord is weak, so for instance, let's say you've got a weak Saturn in the 7th house, that's going to create a lot of relationship problems for you, right? If you've got a weak Saturn in the 10th house, that's going to create some career problems for you, right? So the thing is a weak planet in other houses doesn't always work. Strong planets, strong Krura grahas, which is the appropriate word rather than malefics, okay? Or you're saying Dushtana lords, sorry, getting the subject wrong. But even with Dushtana lords, you can't necessarily say that if they're weak in other houses that they're going to be easier. As a matter of fact, they're going to be problematic. So likewise for ease, do I prefer Kendra Kona lords to be weaker in the Dushthanas? No, because if a Kendra Kona lord is weak in a Dushtana house, it's going to have a lot of problems with the challenges of that Dushtana house. Generally, you want a planet to be strong across the board. You don't want it to be weak, because when it's weak, that's when it creates problems. People have this misunderstanding of that. That's generally, you need a planet to be strong. Strong planets can only bring good to the horoscope in a good manner, right? That's the bit you need to understand, or at least in my opinion. Go ask somebody else, they might tell you something different. That's basically what I have seen happen. Okay, so somebody asked, what's the main difference from transits from the moon versus the ascendant? Okay, the moon is your manas, or sensory mind. It's how you sense things, it's how you perceive things, it's the subjective reality of the situation that you're dealing with. Okay, so for instance, or here, let me go into that explanation later. So it's the subjective reality. It's how you sense things to be. Whereas from the ascendant, that's more of the concrete reality. Okay, so for instance, somebody may get married and they may have the potential for a good marriage in their horoscope, but that marriage indicator might be in a difficult position from the moon, which could mean that they might experience it in a more difficult manner, right? I tend to work with the moon in a completely different way. In other words, I don't tend to construct a chart just for the moon as the ascendant, because I do a lot of work with Tara Bala, and it helps to see those things on a different level. And that's based on the distance between nakshatras that a planet's in, things along those lines. And it tends to show a lot of the same things. But as the general answer to your questions, the moon is the subjective reality, whereas the rising sign is the concrete reality. That's the best way to get it. Okay. Okay, so just one more reminder. I'm probably here for another 10 minutes, but just another brief reminder, which is that the 10% discount that I've been offering on astrological services, if you want to take advantage of that, you need to book tonight before 11 p.m. London time. For those of you who need the time breakdown, but you really can find this all online, but hey, I'll do you a favor, is 3 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Mountain, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern. If you're in India, that means 3:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. Okay, so if you want to beat that 11 p.m. deadline for being able to take advantage of the 10% discount, that's going to end tonight. And remember, on Sunday, the fees are going to go up because I'm having to accommodate a lot more admin these days in order to handle person to person over the internet. Okay. Let's see some of the other questions we have. In order to understand how retrograde planets are going to affect a sign, you need to understand the strength of those retrograde planets. The best way I feel to do so is through working with the Baladi Avastas, the Jagradati Avastas, and the dignity of the planet, which is something which is one of what are called the deep toddy avastas, right? Those are generally very good things to help you to understand the strength of a planet. And you add that in conjunction, and I don't mean mathematically add that, I just mean take both into consideration. You also consider the Shadbala of a planet. Okay, that's the best way to understand it, how a planet is going to impact a sign. You can't always get into this mindset of a retrograde planet is going to create all this disruption and these really horrible things. I find that doesn't really work. Okay, so let me read a question or two here and there. I don't do a lot of work with Bhava Bala, really. I just don't find a need to. So, things that I don't find a need to work with, I don't tend to go a lot into those. Just so you understand. One of the main focuses of my work is with the nakshatras in order to add a lot more definition to the prediction using a specific method of judging the strength of the planets involved in those nakshatras, both occupying the nakshatras and the planet connected to the nakshatras, in addition to looking at the concrete things in the horoscope, such as prediction, through working with the Baladi Avastas, Jagradati Avastas, and the Deep Tati Avastas. Those tend to be some of the main things I work with, in addition to Jaimini astrology. So I haven't really found much of a need to dabble in Bhava Bala. I'm not saying that it's not helpful. It's just not something that I've really, done a lot of work with, just because I haven't felt a need to. Okay. Malefic planet in Rahu and Ketu in divisional chart. I'm not sure what you're asking. I don't do a lot of mundane astrology. Somebody's asking me about the conflict in Syria. I don't do a lot of mundane astrology with that. I like to focus on the individual. Does it work when you look at a Mahadasha Lord in a sign, making it as a Lagna? That's a good question. Here's a good way to work with the dashas, so to speak. So let's say that you're in a Mars dasha. And let's say Mars has a seventh house agenda and it's strong, right? It's responsible for the seventh houses and it's strong enough to create a relationship. And let's say you're in an Antardasha of Venus, which is obviously a relationship oriented planet. And let's say Venus rules. So look at where the planet rules from the Mahadasha Lord. And let's say Venus rules the seventh. So let's say you've got Mars and Scorpio and Venus rules the 7th and the 12th. And you've got a good, strong Venus, which means it's going to manifest more of its 7th house qualities than it would the 12th house qualities. Then that becomes a house that the two share in common. So they share an agenda for the 7th house. And so it's likelier that those two planets are going to come together to create a relationship during that time. If both planets have the strength to do that, which can be judged through the Baladi Avastas, Jagradati Avastas, Deep Tati Avastas. I'll probably do a future, more in-depth webinar on those things, the Avastas, because they're a very helpful thing to understand how to work with. Okay, so time for maybe one more question before I hit the bye-bye button. Okay, so let's see what anybody else might have a question for. And I'll scroll up just to see, but you can also feel free to type it down below. Because right now I'm scrolling all the way up to top. Somebody says, thank you for addressing it, sir. I really want to know about affliction caused by the Rahu and Ketu axis. Rahu and Ketu are always going to be slightly problematic. That's one thing to understand because that's their nature. They're taking you into the stuff inside of yourself that you have a difficult time confronting at other times so that you pay more attention to it. But if Rahu and Ketu's dispositors are strong in the horoscope, dependent upon which Varga, it's going to be different in each Varga, right? If their dispositors are strong, then they're going to create less hardship in association with the things they're coming into contact with. If you've got a strong Saturn as well, there's less difficulty from Rahu. If you've got a strong Mars, there's also less difficulty from Ketu. But that's just a generalization. There are all sorts of little sub-rules that you have to know and that you have to work with, okay? Combinations for a good astrologer. That's a long answer for that. Okay. It's okay. So I'm going to have to go, but I just wanted to remind everybody one last time this coming Saturday, the financial astrology course starts. So all of you who've been nagging me in my inbox, which I like it when you do that. I'm just kind of saying that in that way. But all of you who've been nagging me in my inbox to teach you financial techniques for your horoscope, here's your chance. But you got to go and you got to register for the class. It's 2 to 3 classes long. Each class is 90 minutes in length. It's only $108 to register for the course, right? You get a copy of each class recording so you can go back and listen to it for review. You can ask questions in the astrological forum as well. You get all the PowerPoints from the class, which are also good for review as well. And you can submit your birth information if you want, in the chance that I might have time to look at your chart and use it as one of the examples. If you want to register, the link to do so is up above where you see the little I in the video. That'll take you to the registration page. If you're a previous student, you can get a 10% discount on the course fee. Just email me through my website if you want to know how to take advantage of that. In addition to that, the 10% discount on all astrological services is going to end tonight at 11 p.m. So if you're wanting to schedule before the prices go up this Sunday, now would be a good time to do so. Okay, thank you all for watching. Thanks for coming on, and thank you for all your wonderful questions. And please do take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.